There was once a young man who lived in a city that never slept. His days were filled with noise, the hum of traffic, the chatter of people, and the endless echo of his own thoughts. He wanted peace, but his mind was like a storm, always moving, always loud. Every time he tried to rest, his thoughts would whisper, "You're not doing enough, you're running out of time, you should be more." He worked harder, chased success, and surrounded himself with distractions, thinking they would silence the storm inside him. But the more he chased, the louder it became. Until one evening, as the sun began to fade behind the tall buildings, he finally broke. He sat alone on a park bench, eyes empty, feeling a silence heavier than any noise. An old monk passing by noticed his stillness and asked, "Why does your heart look so tired?" The young man sighed, "Because my mind never stops. It's full of everything and nothing. I don't know how to rest." The monk smiled softly and said, "You confuse movement with meaning. You think peace is found in doing more, when in truth, peace is found in being less." The young man frowned, not understanding. So the monk picked up a small bowl of water from the fountain and said, "This water is your mind. Look at how it trembles when touched by the wind." Then he placed his hand gently over it, blocking the air. "Now look again. When nothing disturbs it, it reflects the sky perfectly. That is what happens when you stop fighting your thoughts. The mind becomes still, and clarity returns." The man sat silently, watching the bowl. For the first time, he realized that his chaos was not coming from the world, but from within. He began to practice silence, not the absence of sound, but the absence of reaction. Every morning, before the world awoke, he would sit by the window, close his eyes, and breathe. At first, his thoughts screamed louder than ever. But slowly, they began to fade like waves retreating after a long storm. Days turned into weeks, and he started to see beauty in small things: the warmth of sunlight on his hands, the sound of leaves dancing in the wind, the rhythm of his own heartbeat. The city was still loud, but his mind was not. One night, standing by the same fountain where he once met the monk, he whispered, "My mind is calm now." And for the first time, he understood what peace truly meant: not a world without storms, but a heart that remains still within them. Because true freedom begins not when the world goes quiet, but when your mind does. Weeks passed, and the young man's world began to change, not because the world itself changed, but because his eyes did. He noticed that when his mind was quiet, life began to whisper in ways it never had before. The laughter of a child passing by carried wisdom. The sound of rain tapping on his window felt like a reminder, "You're still here, you're still breathing." He realized something profound: the storm had never been his enemy. It was his teacher. The chaos had been trying to show him something he refused to see, that peace isn't found by escaping the noise, it's found by understanding it. One morning, he returned to the mountain temple where the monk lived. The air was cold, and a soft fog wrapped around the trees like a blanket of silence. The monk greeted him with a nod and said, "So, what did you learn from your storm?" The man smiled faintly. "I learned that when I tried to fight my thoughts, they grew stronger. But when I began to listen, they began to fade. Now, I understand my mind is not the enemy. It is a sky, and my thoughts are just passing clouds." The monk chuckled gently. "And when the clouds are gone, what remains?" The young man looked toward the horizon. "The light." The monk closed his eyes and whispered, "Then you are free." From that day on, the young man lived differently. He still worked, dreamed, and struggled, but he did so with calmness. When people shouted, he listened with silence. When life became uncertain, he breathed through the fear. When pain arrived, he didn't resist it, he watched it, until it dissolved like smoke in the wind. Years later, people began to come to him, asking how he found such peace in a world that never stops moving. He would simply smile and say, "When you stop trying to control everything, life begins to take care of itself. When your mind becomes still, the answers you've been chasing start to find you." He had become what he once searched for, a calm within chaos, a light within the storm. And so, the storm that once haunted him became his greatest teacher. The mind is not meant to be controlled, it is meant to be understood. When you let go of resistance, peace flows in naturally. Because true strength is not in controlling the storm, but in learning to stand still while it passes.